Welcome to Mr. Hutchings History, where the past comes alive. Let's dive into today's story.
Ever heard of a year where, like, rock-solid governments just, poof, gone?
Just like that.
Yeah, 1989. Communism bit the dust across Eastern Europe. It's like a chain reaction, revolution dominoes. We're diving into some Mr. Hutchings History podcast clips today to unpack it all.
Yeah, it's tempting to see it as simple, one thing leading to another.
Right.
But the paths to change were surprisingly, diverse. Each country had its own little revolution flavor, often driven by everyday people making, honestly, really gutsy choices.
Let's kick things off with Poland and that whole solidarity movement. I'm always struck by how it started. It wasn't some bigwig intellectuals or politicians. It was, get this, shipyard workers.
In Gdansk, no less.
Gdansk, right?
It's 1980, and these blue-collar guys, they're on strike.
They probably wanted better potato rations, right?
Well, sure, better wages were part of it, but they were demanding some pretty fundamental rights, too.
Like what?
The right to organize, to have a voice that the state didn't control.
They're right.
Under a communist regime? That's radical, man.
Yeah, you don't mess with the commies.
Yeah.
So this electrician, Lech Wałęsa, he becomes like the poster boy for all this.
Wałęsa, yeah. He had this charisma, and Solidarity's message was basically, hey, we're a nation and we're united against injustice. It resonated deeply. They even wanted to unite all these different social groups who felt ignored. Shows how much people wanted change, right?
But the government didn't just sit back and watch the solidarity thing take off, did they?
Nope, not a chance.
So tanks in the streets.
Well, in 1981, Moscow's breathing down their necks, right? So General Jaruzelski, he declares martial law, bans solidarity, throws Wałęsa in the slammer. Looked like a win for the regime, at least for a bit.
Classic power play.
Yeah.
But solidarity didn't just disappear, did they?
That's the thing. They went underground. Kept the resistance alive, spreading info, organizing in secret.
Ah, the good old underground resistance. Always a good plot. But were they actually effective, though?
Surprisingly, yeah, they were. There's even a theory that Pope John Paul II's visit to Poland back in '79 played a part in this whole thing.
Hold on, the Pope. Now, that's a curveball I wasn't expecting.
Seems random, right? But John Paul II, he was Polish himself. His visit, it energized the nation. Some historians even say it contributed to communism's downfall, and not just in Poland, but across Europe. Like, wow, talk about unintended consequences, right?
So the government basically shot themselves in the foot trying to squash solidarity.
Kind of, yeah. Crackdowns just breed resentment, and it showed just how brutal the regime was. Add to that, the economy was tanking, and Gorbachev's doing his reforms in the Soviet Union, showing there might be a different way.
Options were dwindling.
Big time.
Poland's like that first domino to fall. What happens next?
Okay, so picture this. We head south to Hungary, and things are different there. Less of a explosive revolution and more like they're carefully dismantling communism from the inside out.
From the inside. That's like termites getting rid of a house. I thought these regimes are usually good at, not letting go of power.
You'd think so, right? But Hungary, even with the whole communism thing, they like to push boundaries. János Kadar, their leader from the mid-50s, he introduced some freedoms like multi-candidate elections. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Wild, right?
For the Eastern Bloc, that's practically anarchy.
Totally. But get this. By the late 80s, it was obvious these baby steps weren't cutting it. The economy, as usual, was a mess, and people wanted real change. That's when the Hungarian Communist Party, they did something pretty unexpected.
Did they finally decide to have that democracy chat over goulash?
Not quite a goulash summit, but they agreed to talk to opposition groups in 1989. Imagine that. The regime actually admitting that, yeah, maybe things need to change, and gasp, other people have some valid point.
That's either really brave or they saw the writing on the wall, right?
I'd be a bit of both.
Yeah.
But there's this one event that really drives home the shift. The reburial of Imre Nagy.
Imre Nagy. He was involved with that uprising a while back, right?
Yeah, the 1956 Hungarian uprising. He was the leader. And the Soviets, well, they didn't take it easy on him or his followers.
Right. That was brutal.
So giving Nagy a proper burial with all the honors.
It's like they were saying, sorry, our bad.
Basically, it was huge. They admitted their mistakes publicly, tried to break from that dark part of their history. Imagine if some regimes today did that, huh?
Talk about a plot twist for the history book. So yeah. Hungary's story doesn't end with a remarial, does it?
Oh, no, there's more. October 1989, they switch from the Communist Party to, get this, the Hungarian Socialist Party. Rebranding 101 right there.
New name, same. Well,
And then by March 1990, bam, free elections. First time in decades.
Did anyone see that coming? I mean, after years of the Soviet Union calling the shots, it's wild.
Historian Tony Judt called it a remarkable case. The communists basically dismantled their own system. Not exactly something you see every day, especially when they've been in power for so long.
It's true. Those guys usually like to hold on tight. Okay, this is already mind-blowing, but I'm ready for the Berlin Wall. That's like the image of 1989.
Iconic.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. What happened in Hungary opening borders, reforms, the whole shebang, it directly affected what went down in Germany.
Wait, so East Germans saw what Hungary was doing and thought, hey, we can get out of here.
Exactly. You're stuck in East Germany, right? Eric Honecker's running the show, totally out of touch.
Didn't seem like the feel-good manager type.
Know, and the Berlin Wall's just there, dividing families, a constant reminder. Then, boom, Hungary opens up. A crack in the system.
Did they just let people leave? I mean, for years, that wall was impossible to cross.
Oh, they tried to control it at first, stem the tide, you know?
Yeah.
But with Hungary open and then people finding ways through Czechoslovakia too, it became this mass exodus. Talk about pressure on the East German government.
Visit East Germany if you can escape, that is.
Exactly. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. And back home, protests were exploding. Leipzig especially. Wir sind das Volk. We are the people. Honecker's days were numbered.
Okay, so November 9th, 1989. The wall falls. What was the final straw? What tipped it over?
Honestly, total chaos. Some East German official, he makes this announcement about the border, but he worded it terribly, made it sound like it was instantly open. People rushed the checkpoints, overwhelmed the guards.
They were probably just as confused as everyone else.
No kidding. There's footage of people using anything they could find, hammers, pickaxes, to chip away at the wall.
Man, chills. That's what it looks like when people take control. Powerful.
Totally changed history. Families reunited after decades. A city literally put back together. Hard to overstate how symbolic that was. And again, Gorbachev's stance played a part.
Right, because before this, the Soviet Union was basically like, don't even think about it. Whenever anyone in the Eastern Bloc got any ideas about freedom.
Yep. But Gorbachev, with his new thinking stuff being more open to the West, reforms he doesn't intervene.
Bold move.
Historian Tony Judt said this sent a crystal clear message. No Soviet rescue this time. The local regimes, they were on their own.
The dominoes are really falling now. Poland, Hungary, East Germany. Who's next in this wave of change?
Okay, now we're heading to Czechoslovakia. They had their own run-in with Soviet tanks, you know.
Prague Spring, 1968, right. Alexander Dubich. Socialism with a human face. Brutal. I can't even imagine living through something like that.
It was a harsh lesson. Reform, not so fast, said the Soviets.
So given all that, what did the Czechs do in '89? Did all that history, all that trauma hold them back, or did they want change too?
Great question. You'd expect a violent uprising given what happened in '68. Trauma like that doesn't just go away.
For sure.
But instead, you get the unbelievably peaceful Velvet Revolution.
Velvet Revolution. It's kind of peaceful sounding for something called, a revolution.
It really sums it up, though. No bloodshed, just this wave of peaceful protests that swept the communist government right out. It's a powerful image, right? After what happened in Czechoslovakia back in '68, it's amazing how they pulled that off.
Yeah, peaceful protests are one thing, but usually you need something more to actually force a government out.
Yeah.
Who are the big players in all of this?
Václav Havel. He was a playwright, believe it or not, and a dissident. He'd been a real thorn in the regime side for years.
A playwright now. That's not something you see every day.
Yeah.
Here comes trouble. It's the playwright.
Right. But Havel, he was all about the power of ideas. Speaking truth to power, even if it meant getting in trouble. And he definitely did even spent time as a political prisoner.
Wow. Hardcore.
He was part of this group, Charter 77. They were all about human rights. Havel's writing, super influential, especially with other dissidents.
So did the government just let these protests keep growing?
They tried to stop them, of course, like November 17th in Prague, student protests, police brutality, the whole deal. But that just made things worse. More people protested, and within weeks, bam, communist government, gone.
And Havel.
Sworn in as president of Czechoslovakia that December. Talk about a comeback.
From political prisoner to president. This is some real underdog story stuff, huh?
Shows you how fast things can change once the momentum shifts. And I know we sound like a broken record here, but Gorbachev's decision to, not send in the tanks, crucial again. John Lewis Gaddis called it, get this, a triumph of hope. Basically, the Soviet Union let it happen.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Poland, Hungary, East Germany, Czechoslovakia. Mostly peaceful.
Right.
But, I mean, it couldn't have all been smooth sailing, right?
Well, there's one more country we have to talk about. Things get a little, shall we say, more complicated. It's a reminder that revolutions don't always go by the book.
Hit me with it.
Romania.
Romania. Okay, yeah. Already a different vibe. Who was in charge over there?
Nicolae Ceausescu. He didn't get the memo about, maybe easing up a bit. While everyone else was dipping their toes in the reform pool, he went full dictator.
Repression, iron fist, the whole 9 yards.
Oh, yeah. Cult of personality, the works.
And how was the economy doing? I'm guessing it wasn't exactly booming.
Worse than usual, even. Ceausescu, he was obsessed with paying off Romania's debt. Didn't matter if his own people were struggling. Food shortages, no power, secret police everywhere. Recipe for disaster, right?
Talk about a powder keg.
Yeah.
What finally set it off?
It seems small looking back, but it started with this Hungarian priest, Laszlo Tükes. In December of '89, the government tried to deport him from this city, Timișoara.
What do you do?
He'd been speaking out against the regime, and his situation, it really resonated with Romanians. They were done with Ceausescu.
It's amazing how often it's something small like that, right, that sparks a revolution. Like dominoes.
Yeah.
That fruit vendor in Tunisia, the shipyard workers in Poland. It's like this pressure building and then bam.
Exactly. People think these regimes are strong, but they're actually super fragile. And in Romania, those protests, they spread fast. From Timișoara to Bucharest, the capital.
Did Ceausescu try to get things back under control?
Oh, yeah, he tried. Big mistake. He gave this rambling speech on live TV, blaming everyone but himself, tried to act like he was the victim. Total disaster.
Can you imagine watching that, knowing what happens next?
It's wild. You can see the exact moment the crowd turns on him. From there, it was only a matter of time. Ceausescu and his wife Elena, they tried to make a run for it, got caught, put on trial on Christmas Day, no less.
Christmas Day. Come on, that's too perfect.
Right. And the trial. Super quick, seems staged even. Within hours, they're found guilty of genocide, economic crimes, you name it. Execution by firing squad.
Wow. Brutal end to a brutal regime. Talk about a contrast with the other revolutions we've talked about. Shows you that freedom isn't always peaceful.
It's true. 1989, it gave everyone hope for peaceful change. But Romania, it's a reminder that some dictators won't budge. They'll hold on tight, even to the very end.
Well, that was intense. We went from shipyard strikes in Poland to the fall of the Berlin Wall, a playwright becoming president in Czechoslovakia, and a dictator meeting a very dramatic end in Romania, all in just 1 year. 1989 really changed everything.
It was a wild ride, that's for sure. But it also shows that history isn't just something that happens to us, right? It's about choices, about everyday people who are willing to take a stand, even when it seems impossible.
We often get caught up in the big picture, but I think it's important to remember the individual stories, too. The people who woke up one day and their world was completely different.
Absolutely. It reminds us that history is still happening. What we do today, it matters. It'll be in the history books one day.
So, to everyone listening, what really stood out to you about 1989? Can you see any connections with what's going on in the world right now? And what questions do you still have? Head over to our forum and tell us. Let's keep this conversation going. This isn't the end, it's just the beginning of the deep dive.
Thanks for listening to Mr. Hutchings History. Keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.